How about I roll down the old intro stage for good luck? Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman ZX Advent. In the last part, we did a lot of side quests. In fact, more or less the rest of them that are in the game, but we're not quite doing with optional content yet. You might remember that we accepted a mission to refight Buckfire. I forget if that was the last video or the video before that. We're now back in the intro stage to do that so we can talk about something that we've had the ability to get since the start of the game. I've even gotten 3 of them thus far in the game. The medals. You get a medal for beating a Pseudoroid a specific way. There are 3 medals per Pseudoroid. Silver, bronze, and gold. Bronze being usually the easiest to get, gold usually being the hardest. Sometimes you can get more than one medal at once, it really depends on the Pseudoroid. For instance, what I'm going for right here is Buckfire's gold medal, where the only way you can damage Buckfire is by using Sarnak's touchscreen ability, where you tap the touchscreen and throw a single kunai at him. This takes a while. This is why I'm using this as the example, because it allows me to potentially fast forward if I need to. The other 2 medals that Buckfire has is the bronze, which you need to deal the killing blow with one of Headshock's rolling attacks, and a silver, which requires that you only hit Buckfire's weak point, which is the headdress that he has. That's easily done by having the Chrono Force Time Bomb charge attack active because it means you move faster than he does. Rose Spark's medals are to kill Rose Spark while in the bulb form. You can more easily make Rose Spark enter the bulb form by hitting him with an ice attack, or sometimes things like, I think, the Giga Crush. The silver medals to only damage Rose Spark while using Argoyle and Ugoyle, which sounds like it might be a little annoying, but it's honestly pretty easy to do. The gold is the same as the silver, but instead of being an Argoyle and Ugoyle form, you fight Rose Spark entirely as Rose Spark. And it's one of the only fights where you really get to use Rose Spark at all, honestly. Chrono Force's medals, the bronze is to finish him off using ZX's charged saber attack, which you just saber attack the floor and the splash damage should hit him. The silver is to finish him off using Buckfire's dashing attack. That's theoretically the first medal you can get chronologically in the game. And the gold is to fight the fight with only Queen Bee. I believe the way you do that is using her charge attack, because the splash damage gets high enough vertically that you can damage him. Voltron is where some of the most annoying ones are. Voltron's bronze is to survive the fight for 2 minutes and then defeat him. The silver is to finish Voltron off using the Sonic Boom move with Aeolus, where you do the sword, then the sub-sword, then the sword attack again. Then really annoying is the gold, where you can only damage Voltron using Model A's Giga Attack, which is the attack where you send out a giant square, and then you just do several hits. That is notably much harder to do when you have your biometal gauge maxed out. This is what I was slightly foreshadowing earlier on, where there's some parts of the game that's technically easier if you don't get any of the biometal upgrades until you've done everything else in the game. I brought that up when we first got the one over in the oil field. Headshock's medals. The bronze is to finish off Headshock while you're in Chrono Force form, which that you can easily do that with the water around there. The silver is a weird one. You might remember I mentioned during the Headshock fight that she can summon little mice. If you slow down time with Chrono Force and then use Model F/Atlas's charge punch, you can knock the mice into her, and the splash damage will actively do damage, so you can kill her with that. Doing that is the silver. The gold for Headshock we already got. That's just fighting Headshock is either base Ash or base Gray entirely. For Bifrost, the bronze is to defeat him using only Queen Bee. The silver is the same, but only Buckfire. The gold is to hit Bifrost using only Model A's sub-weapon, the homing shot. That sounds like it might be annoying, but honestly, while he might have some invincibility frames, it's pretty straightforward. Queen Bee is where things get a little tricky. The bronze for her is to kill her only hitting her hive, where you only attack it, not her after you destroy the hive. It's more or less just you wait until the hive respawns. The silver we did during the actual fight. We need to destroy her without her summoning her bees. And the gold is the tricky thing. You need to take her out without hurting the beehive at all. Best way to do that is use Chrono Force's Time Bomb attack, and then make it so that you use Atlas with the trajectory of the shots angled all the way up and all the way to the side. It can be tricky, but it's very doable. Argoyle is potentially the most annoying. All three of Argoyle and Ugoyle's medals require beating both of them at once with certain attacks. The bronze requires you to take out both of them with Model A's Giga Crush at the exact same time. The silver is the same except it's head shocks charge attacks. And the gold is the same, but it's Buckfire's normal charge where you throw the 2 boomerangs around. In concept, a lot of these are very easy to get. But executing it can be a little tricky. No matter what, though, you're not getting it done in one trip. So what I'm doing here is off-screening getting a lot of these, honestly. Because I don't want to show you the same boss fights over and over and over again. There are full videos on YouTube that show good strategies for this. For instance, what people recommend is just only using Model A's Giga Crush for Argoyle and Ugoyle. And then once they're low enough on HP, swap over to the move you need to destroy them with, be it headshot or otherwise. It's hard, but it's worth it. Oh no, we've just gotten confirmation of mechanaloid activity in the air. It's only a matter of time before they get to 100 energy stores. I don't have the firepower to take them on. I don't have the energy stores. The 3 left side straight in. I'm begging you, please, let them get the energy stores and get this mission. Thank you, let me award if you can pull it off. I'll be honest, I completely forgot that guy was there. Hence why I was speeding through that text pretty quickly. But yeah, now we're going to accept all of these quests and just keep on doing it. Again, this is honestly the best way to get energy crystals in the game in some regards. Especially if the boss fight's really quick, like you can do Queen Bee pretty quickly. And you're going to get energy crystals for fighting them no matter what. So if you haven't set a warp point in the final area of any given stage as active, do that now, because it'll save you some time in doing this. With that said, the other side quest, which I'm going to be getting to in a moment that we just accepted, is a little bit of a send up to Panterklaus's stage, I believe that guy's name was, from 02, the trade stage. And that there's going to be 3 boxes you need to protect. However, whereas the ones in 02 are being taken away by mechanaloids, the ones in this game are being targeted by attacks. You complete the mission as long as the boxes are intact in some form. I think as long as there's one, you're generally fine. We even have some returning enemies from, well, in this game, they technically first showed up in the Waterfall Ruins, but these are straight out of Blaze and Blizzard stage from 03. Just gotta survive for a minute. As long as one is still surviving, I think you're good. I don't think the reward even changes if you take some damage in this fight. With that said, I should note, go back through this video and keep an eye on my pause screen, because at certain points you'll notice the timer starts to jump up a lot. If I recall correctly, the process for getting the medals, I started it around just under 5 hours in, I think, on the timer. Somewhere about there. And I think I end somewhere over 7.5 hours in. It takes a while to do this, even if you know the strategies. If you mess it up, you just gotta come back here and do it all over again. You get energy crystals all the same, but at this point, there's not gonna be much to spend it on outside of filling your sub-tank. So it can feel a little awkward in that regard. The thing to really watch out for in this mission is how fragile the boxes honestly are. They don't take much punishment before they get destroyed. But as long as there's at least some still around, you win. Thank you, you managed to save at least 2. Here's your reward, 200 energy crystals. Maybe the reward does change. Like, in terms of the amounts, like, each save is 100. Either way, it doesn't matter, because, again, there's not much for me to use energy crystals on at this point. So, at this point, what this video is going to mostly be is me collecting missions to refight the bosses, going to refight the bosses, and showing you how the metal room progresses after each single trek. As long as you save at a nearby trans server before going into any of these boss refights, it shouldn't take you too terribly long. I'd say the strictest out of all of those clear requirements. The Queen Bee gold can be a little tough. Argoyle's is annoying, but doable as long as you're very patient. It's really Voltron's that's really tedious at this point if you have the maxed out biometal gauge. As you have to wait, I think, upwards of 20 to 30 seconds, if not more, for your biometal gauge to refill completely, because that's the only time you can use the Giga Crush, by the way, is when your biometal gauge is full. That's the main reason I mentioned that you don't want to potentially grab the biometal upgrades. Again, This isn't worth doing unless you super care about very precise details. I'm doing it because I want to show this game off to the best of my ability and what the reward is for it. Because the reward is pretty sweet, albeit not super useful. So here's how we're looking after wave 1 of going back to the bosses. Most of the bronzes, about half the golds, and a couple of the silvers. In some regards, I find some of the silvers harder to do, just because I feel they... In games like this, sometimes it's easier to achieve perfection or adequateness rather than being in the middle. And I should note, if you're wondering how you learn you can get the medals outside of accidentally doing them, I believe if you've accepted a mission from one of those hunters to go after one of the pseudoroids, you can then talk to that same person again to get a hint on one of the medals. I think they'll usually try to aim for the lowest one you haven't gotten, but otherwise, it just comes down to experimentation and figuring out that you can get them. So at this point, we've gotten all the medals. So over on New Game Plus, here's our reward. This is model lowercase a, or model alpha. This is an Easter egg just straight up, because it turns you into an 8-bit version of Ash or Gray. You can jump, you can shoot, and that's about all you can do. The only thing that this can do that the classic Mega Man cannot is wall jump, because you kind of need that. It's cute. The sound effects are a little bit off. That's how they've always been. But it's not very useful in combat. It doesn't do much damage from memory. This is actually the star of a minigame you unlock for beating the game, where you go through a level themed after some of the levels throughout the game and fights like 3 variants of the final boss, each in being sort of like also set up to a certain Wily fight from the classic. I'm not showing it off just because I never really like showing off the mini-games in the Mega Man Zero games period anyway, unless they give you something, and they usually don't, so not much purpose in my eyes. The only game I really felt like doing that in was ZX, that's just because that game at least had the arcade setup. In the other Zero games, the mini-games are all in the menu, that just doesn't feel right to me. With that said, now we're back in the oil field for the final side quest in the game from memory. Because you might remember, there is a giant bunch of sand on the bottom floor of this place that I talked about when we were in Oilfield 3 initially. Once you've cleared some part of the game, I forget exactly which, an NPC will spawn down there and you can give them energy crystals to clear the hallway. And this leads to, I think, a feature that was removed from Legacy Collection. I'm honestly not too certain about that point, though. Thank you for before. As you can see, I'm doing better. My name's Tom. I know I'm the one that owes you, but the holes don't take themselves for free, you know. Could you help me out with the donation? Sure, and you can just give them the maximum start 300. Thank you very much. I'll get right on it. So, once we leave the area and come back, that hallway will be clear, and that'll allow us to enter a new door that has a bunch of boxes in it. I'm not sure if this was exclusive to the DS version. I don't think it is. But depending on what your system clock is, one of the boxes in the room that you'll now have access to can contain an item. There are 3 types of items that you can get in there. Some that are just healing items. But then there's some new equipables, and I think even just some, like, minor quest items. And it depends entirely on what month your system's clock was set to. For instance, there was the Magic Pumpkin, which extended the time of elemental attacks. The Soccer Ball, which turned Argoyle's Rock Bomb attack into a soccer ball. There's the Demon Buster that increased the buster damage of anything that had a buster by 1. There was the Baby Doll that increased female pseudoroid damage by 1. There was the Warrior Helmet, which is the same thing but for male pseudoroids. And I want to say that was it for notable items you can get out of that. I think you can still get them in the Legacy Collection, but they take so long to show up, and I don't feel like messing with my system's clock that it's just not worth me going for them. But if you want to get them, they are in here. And I think there's some minor quest items you can also get through this, but it's just something like, take it to someone, and they'll give you, like, some energy crystals or something. It's not really worth talking about. It's very super hidden. And I like the idea of it because it would be ripe for internet rumors, but it really isn't worth the effort you would put into trying to get them Honestly, it's probably better to just see if you can like find a Game Shark code if you're playing the DS version that can give them to you. Well, I guess Action Replay would be what you're using in that case. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 19, we're heading to the penultimate stage of the game. See you guys then.